periods, vowels, early on, as in
Um,
dot M.
oh, could have been dots, could have been dashes, could have been nothing at all. Just anything
Was this going on Rosetta Stone?
on the Rosetta Stone. I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Okay, but an example of a word without vowels, which sounds like it has vowels, would be. Let me see if I can do this right. Yay way. Okay.
The reason I ask you this is because I've seen Adam spelled A-D dot M.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. No, I haven't seen that myself.
Under a new creation story similar to that.
Okay. Let me get to the atom in a minute, as you'll be interested in what I have to say. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, he was just asking me about ancient words that are spelled without vowels, and when the vowels are removed, are they replaced with dots or periods? I have seen that. I've seen them replaced with dashes or nothing at all, and the nothing at all was this example, Yahweh. Okay?
I have one question. I don't see much difference between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I mean, there's no difference to me.
The reason you don't see the difference is that one stole from the other two, and the other two come from an original source. Christianity ripped off everything. That's why there's nothing original about it. It gets its God from the Greek Zeus, okay? It gets its angels from the extraterrestrials. It gets the term devil, I'll explain, from the labelism of Enki, okay? Christianity, just forget about that. As far as Judaism and Islam, yes, they do coincide with each other because they come from the original source in Africa, which is known as Kemet. And we'll get into that, all right? Because I'm trying to speed through the cosmology so you have a foundation for the noble early history, all right? The Moorish legacy by itself is enough to appreciate, but it doesn't have the same impact if you don't understand the extraterrestrial issue behind it, all right? Here. Get through that first. This gives it a more impetus over here. This by itself, nothing, all right? So the Anunnaki are using the apes. Now, on the word of Enlil, being the hump that he is, the Anunnaki are working the Adapas to the bone into the ground, killing them off literally left and right. Now, Ea and Ninhursag have just put their blood, sweat, and tears into this creation. They have, allegedly, a certain amount of compassion that they develop for the creation, as any artist or God would towards his piece of artwork, okay? So they start getting rather pissed off at the way their hostile, sadistic pig of a brother is driving them into the ground. So Ea decides, wait a minute, I'm putting all this damn effort into this thing. I want some for myself, okay? And this is what begins the so-called original sin, because now he's beginning to disobey feudal law, because there's a feud between him and him. Why? Well, he's in charge. By feudal law, he's the older prince, the older brother. He has to be in charge. He doesn't want to be, though, which produces a sadistic hostility towards the Adapa. On the other hand, he's the one that creates them. He's the master geneticist. He feels that he should be in charge and wants to take over. Okay? So you got this magnificent Shakespearean drama developing here, that's very similar to the shenanigans you read about in Hamlet and Macbeth and so forth. So he sets a plot in motion. Now, Enlil had already established no beast would be taught forbidden knowledge. This is why they had to be engineered to obey simple commands. Lift, shove, push, nothing else, okay? But smart enough to remember those robotic commands, okay? So that they didn't have to be retaught every damn time. Ea says, screw that. He starts taking a certain group of them under his own wing, okay? And starts teaching them forbidden knowledge. But he's got to get the beast evolved a little more modified, because remember, they just got finished creating a beast that wasn't supposed to understand anything more than simple commands. So what he does is both he and his sister Ninhursag have a rather interesting relationship with another extraterrestrial race, okay? And that particular extraterrestrial race, put this over to here, is known as the Ankyls. Okay? Now, what are the Ankyls? Once again, drawing upon the Invisible College, James Cameron did the best job ever of depicting the Ankyls in the movie The Abyss. How are they described? They're described as avionic, bird-like race of beings, highly evolved very far out of three-dimensional existence to higher densities, but they got bored and missed the fun in the third dimension, so part of them came back down to the third dimension. And that's a strange concept, which is why James Cameron did a fantastic job of depicting that concept. And of course, it was so simple, it was so magnificent, that when I saw the movie The Abyss, I was like, transparency. Half in, half out of three-dimensional existence. Are you there? I don't know. I can touch you, but I can't see you. Okay? Half in and half out of three-dimensional reality. Those beings you see are avionic, bird-like race of beings. Okay? That's the Ankyls in the Abyss. Let's break down the words. You're going to like this. First comes the root, Ankh, also spelled this way sometimes. Okay? Now, let's look at that more closely. What is the shape of an Ankh? Now, some people misinterpret it as an angel. Okay? It's not an angel, although the word is validated, you'll see in a minute. Avionic, bird-like race of beings. What is an Ankh? Head of the bird, wings of a bird, tail of a bird. Okay? The Ankh, coming from the term Ankyls, what had happened was Ea went to them and asked them for a little bit of help with the Adapa to modify them a little bit more. They were missing something. And that thing they were missing was the gene for passion. Henceforth, I think, therefore I am. Without the gene for passion, you're a robot. Okay? So put that over here, gene for passion. Gave them the code, the genetic code for passion. They in turn put it into the Adapa, and this is where this elite core starts being created. This elite core becomes known as the Iesu. Okay? What's interesting about Iesu? Iesu, Jesus, Jesus, and also suspected Yahweh eventually. Okay? From Iesu, mispronunciation would be Jesus. From Jesus, Jesus, an even more bastardized term. And then it's also suspected that somewhere along the way, the syllables for Yahweh also came from this. What you'll also, later on, what you'll also know as the proper name, and I'll explain why later, the proper name for the one you call Jesus Christ is Guru Master Prophet Isa. Isa comes directly from this too. Okay? So put that right next to it, Isa. All right, which is also used in Turkey. They still use the proper term to refer to that particular prophet. Gene for passion implemented in the Adapa turns them into the elite Iesu. Now, what are the Iesu now known as? Okay, they are now known as the anointed one with the gene for passion. The anointed ones. Okay? They are taken into caves, secret caves. Okay, I mean, he is really digging a hole for himself, all right? Since he had a relationship with the Ankyls, okay? And once again, Ankh, gene for passion. Ankyls also becomes Angyls, as in Los Angeles. From Angyls, you get the word angel. The angel or the Ankyls. This is why you get the confusion about the Ankh being an angel. It's not. It's a bird. But the linguistic derivation is correct. Ankyl. This is why the term angel becomes associated with the term Ankh. It's okay, but it's a slight historical error, okay, linguistically. What also happened, too, now, was that since Ea had a relationship with the Ankyls, that so-called religious device that is called the Ankh today, it wasn't a religious device, it was a technological device, similar to what you call a microphone or a universal communicator from Star Trek's point of view. He used it to communicate knowledge that much faster to the Iesu, the anointed ones. To pound it, because he only had a limited amount of time with these guys before Enlil was looking at the watch like, where the hell is everybody, okay? So to get this knowledge pumped into them faster and faster, he used this device called the Ankh, which is now what you guys call the Ankh, the angel or the Ankhel, okay? And the root comes from that. Now, since he was using the Ankh, he becomes known as the Ankh in association with the Ankhels, and this is how Prince Ea becomes known as the Ankh-E, Enki. So that's where the name Enki comes from, Ankh, okay? Eventually, he was known as the Ankh. Eventually, the I is attached, Anki, okay? So Prince Ea is his real name. Enki is his pen name, okay? So this is how he gets to be known as this, okay? So now, known as Enki, Iesu, all right? All of a sudden, all these words start relating to each other, and they start going in a circular pattern with each other. Enki takes the Iesu into caves. Now, he even, what he does here is from the perspective of these guys, ultimately abominable. You got to keep that in mind along the way, because there's a word that comes out of this later on that you'll understand why. He goes teaching them. They become the anointed ones. He's using the Ankh, pumping it into their brains, into their genetics, into their cell memory, into their racial memory. This eventually will become the Temple of Solomon and the family of man, okay? What he did, though, aside from using the Ankh, he also used another process to speed it up. Initially, there was the Arian technology of mind control and brainwashing. Remember what I said over there, psychological warfare? They used a particular type of crystal technology to help Anu and Enlil and Ea program the Adapa to do exactly what they were supposed to do. Bam, instant brainwashing, because the mind is no different than the hard drive of your computer. It can be erased. Right? It runs on electricity, so it's easily erased, all right? Well, he goes and turns around and uses it the other way, okay? So he's using the reptilian, if you were trying to piss off the queens, this would be the way to do it. He uses that same reptilian Arian technology to now pump information into the minds of the Iesu even faster, okay? They become the anointed ones. Enlil, still exhibiting his sadistic labor campaign of destroying the Adapas. One day, Enki, now known as Enki, he's walking through the garden, which is where you get the term Garden of Eden from, and, feeling sorry for the Adapas, because now he's got two classes. He's got the Iesu, he's got the Adapas. Decides to go to the Adapas themselves and help them in a different way, okay? Basically signing his own death sentence. But he goes into the garden, finds the Adapas, and starts talking to them. They know who he is. They love him. And he says, how's my brother treating you? And, like, not too good. And you don't like what you're doing. Mm-mm. He says, now you got to remember, once the process was set in motion with the Adapas, the point was, in order to reproduce the perfect slave every time, you had to set up a system of mating. This later on was repeated by the Nazis in terms of controlled genetic mating, okay? Well, in this particular case, one male Adapa was forced to mate with one male female Adapa all the time. Henceforth, perfect predictability as to what kind of slave offspring would be produced every time. It was a way of manipulating racial memory and cell memory in a slave economy, okay? And the thing is, the only way to keep that going was to have it in a controlled biosphere environment. That controlled biosphere is, of course, what you read about in the book of Genesis, the Garden of Eden, okay? This is where you get the concept of an Adam and an Eve, okay? One male Adapa forced to mate with one female Adapa, okay? And all of them had to do that, and they were all tagged, all right, so they would remember who they're supposed to have sex with. And at a certain time of the month, at the ring of the bell, they'd say, come and get it, and, they'd all go in there and go at it, and that would be it, all right? Well, the thing was, that was for all the misery that there was, that was the only form of enjoyment that they had. So now, Enki walks into the garden and he says, what if I could show you something that would make your life that much better? He says, you're not going to escape the slave system that you're in. I can't do anything for that. He says, but I can teach you something that will make your miserable life that much more pleasurable. He says, you know that thing you're allowed to do once a month at the ring of a bell? He says, well, here's a magnificent concept. Guess what? You can do that anytime you want, anywhere, with anyone, okay? All right? So they're thinking about this, right? And they're looking at each other, and all of a sudden the adopter starts smiling. All right? Well, later on, Enlil's looking around, the Anunnaki are looking around, nothing's getting done. Where the hell is everybody? All right? All right? So Enlil goes into the garden looking for them, all right? And of course now Enki had told them, said, look, I'll teach you this, but you have to promise and make damn sure that my brother does not find out about this. He says, otherwise everybody's screwed, all right? So, that's right. Yes. So, but as with everything, somebody's bound to mess this up big time, okay? Someone's going to make a mistake. Well, sure enough, someone was caught by surprise, right? Enlil's walking through the garden looking for something. He hears this noise behind a bush, right? So, looks behind the bush and sees a male adopter fully erect, getting it on with a female adopter that wasn't tagged with the same symbol, okay? At that point, the gig was up. Enlil knew it was his brother. He says, where is that son of a bitch? I'll kill him, right? And this, once that went out, then he found out that not only did he do that, okay, not only did he do that, but he found out that he was also teaching the anointed ones forbidden knowledge, okay? So now he found out about the Iesu, okay? So now he goes on this unholy, massacre, starts just killing off, because at this point now, the adopters have been having sex with everyone. This produces a total screw-up in the genetic structure of slavery, okay? Now you can't tell what kind of product is going to come out, the end results, okay? All these female adopters are pregnant with God knows what. And on top of that, to make matters even worse, a select group was picked to be taught forbidden knowledge. And this forbidden knowledge was, of course, the whys and wherefores of the galactic community and where the adopter came from in the first place. Okay? You're not supposed to be teaching the slave where he came from, okay? Because that's where Mary Shelley gets the idea for Frankenstein, okay? The awakening of the beast, and then the beast coming home to the creator to kill the creator, okay? So he goes on a rampage, killing everyone looking for his brother. At this point, Enki's got to get out of town, all right, real fast. So he takes off, but he also takes off with a whole bunch of the anointed ones, the Iesu. Takes off to what is now referred to as the Pleiades, and proceeds to continue on with the experiment with the anointed ones to produce what's referred to in ufology as the Pleiadians, okay? Another branch of something beyond Homo sapient man, all right? Also related to the human race, the family of men, okay? Some of the anointed ones stayed beside. Some of the Iesu stayed behind to carry on the good fight because they knew the adopters were getting slaughtered, their own brothers and sisters. Someone had to stay behind. So some of the anointed ones stay behind. Enki, he takes off with most of them, the lion's share of them, to the Pleiades. What happened was Enlil, now with his massive spaceship armada and whatnot, is slaughtering everyone left and right. The anointed ones, the Iesu, are like, we have nothing to go up against this, and we're the only ones who know the truth. We can't afford to go up against him and get killed. So they initiate what is now what eventually becomes referred to as running for the hills. You see this in the movie Braveheart with William Wallace and the Scots. They say, run for the hills, let the British come. When they go back, we'll attack them from behind. This, because you're dealing with primates, apes, gives birth to the term guerrilla warfare. Underground warfare, strike and hit, okay? They go taking off for the mountains. To this day, now they were also, these anointed ones These Iesu are also known collectively as the atom. Okay? This is the atom. Okay? It's in the name, ad-om. Om. As opposed to ape, which mimics, om refers to frequency, awakening the beast, the anointed ones, awakening with the gene for passion and forbidden knowledge. Okay? And there is a symbolic relationship between the word atom, A-T-O-M, and the fact that these guys were created at the bottom of a test tube. Okay? Atom, because, atom, yes. Well, there's a definite significance there as well. The Iesu, the atom, they're still carrying on that good fight today. You don't call them Adam anymore. You don't call them Iesu. You call them by another name. Nowadays, you use the term Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Okay? Sasquatch, Bigfoot. That's the atom. Okay? They have carried on the good fight for today. They are living libraries, just like that of the blue whales of the sea. Okay? Yeti, Yowie, Berserker. Okay? Berserker is another term throughout every culture. You'll notice no matter what country you're in on the planet, every culture, every country has a Bigfoot, a Yeti, a Sasquatch, a Berserker, or a werewolf. And at times, the werewolf mythology is combined with the Sasquatch mythology with the word Berserker. Okay? Yes?
You just made reference to a library. What did you say, the whales?
Both the blue whales and the Sasquatch are living libraries.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they have it within themselves, make up their own cell structure, all this key information of true ancient history, where the human race comes from, our relationship with extraterrestrial entities, the family of man, people of color and hue as true custodians of the land. They were locked with that nation so that that information would never get lost, and the people of color and hue would be recognized as the rightful custodians of Earth.
How did the Iesu, the whales come about?
I only know that from what I had been taught by other metaphysical teachers. I don't connect it to their only. The only connection I make is that both the blue whales and the Sasquatch represent Mother Earth. One for the sea, one for the land, and it was done that way on purpose so that if one or the other got wiped out or exterminated, the other stood a better chance of surviving. Yeah.
Well, what does that mean to people here? Are we like a link in between?
Yeah, this is what, now that I've explained that much, I can start getting into what you're talking about. All right? The revolt went on, endless slaughter. Now, of course, corporation feudalism, slave economy. The Anunnaki went to Enlil and said, look, you're killing off all the slaves that are supposed to be doing the slave labor. You got to stop. So, of course, Enlil, realizing, stops. But what he does is now he realizes he's got to take drastic measures to get the slave population back under control. This whole damn revolt going on. The Iesu running for the hills. He's trying to hunt them down. A lot of them did get killed off. A lot of them survived. He's already got an axe to grind against the Adapas, okay? But he's got to stop killing them. So, just to be a spiteful bastard, he decides to go the other route with propaganda. Once again, using the Aryan technology to reprogram everybody. And what he reprograms them with is he wipes their mind. From that day forward, the term Enki, or Ea, is now labeled as forbidden, as in forbidden knowledge, the tree of forbidden knowledge, okay? He is labeled as forbidden to be spoken. The Adapa, or the slave, is never allowed to speak that name again and to burn it into their brains in a state of fear and paranoia. He says from this day forward, he will be known as Baal, okay? Baal. Now, in this type of linguistics, when they wanted to emphasize true despicability, what they did was they added another syllable in front of that, dia. They called him dia Baal. So the person that created the human race was now slandered with the term diabol. Diabol becomes diablo, diablo becomes devil. Okay? Now, in order to have the slave believe this, you have to also have something else on the other side, making it look that much more evil. So what does he do? Enlil puts himself up on a pedestal, and he says, from now on, you will never utter the term Enlil. From now on, you will call me Gad. Now, from the term Gad comes the term God. So, the devil created you, God destroyed you. That's the message here, okay? This is why this becomes so damn volatile and forbidden, because everything you've learned is asked backwards. The devil was never that bad, and God was never that all-loving, okay? I'm not making him out to be a saint. He had his own selfish methods for doing what he did. But on the other hand, the point is, that which you call the devil and that which you call God are biological brothers tied at the hip in a feudal sibling war, okay? So why the hell are you picking one side over the other when these two assholes were trying to destroy each other in the first place, all right? He's a sadistic pig. Doesn't give a shit about you. And him, well, he knew he was going to start a rebellion that nobody could win, okay? But in the end of it all, he is the one that saved our asses with something he did before he left, before he got banished from this kingdom, before he was permanently labeled as Diabol, before he left with the anointed ones. He did something for the Adapas. Okay? He pricked his finger and put his blood into the slave. Now, from that day forward, now remember, this combined with this becomes the foundation for the Moorish legacy in terms of real estate investing, global real estate investing, a throne of power. That drop of blood put into the Adapa created the biggest damn enigma that to this day the entire galactic community is still trying to figure out how to get around it with feudal law. Because by putting royal Syrian blood into the beast, he then gave the beast the right to be custodians of the throne of power, custodians of Earth. It made them the rightful blood heirs of this planet, and if you make them blood heirs of this planet, that means they control the entire kingdom. Okay? That was the ultimate stab in the back to the system, because even the Satar queens couldn't argue against that. So how do you get around it? That's when he starts his whole propaganda campaign, I am God, my brother is the devil, and starts reprogramming all the slaves. Okay? Now, he's got that going on. With this feuding going on, there's another interesting group who was associated with all this along the way, who we haven't mentioned yet. And, of course, you know them already as the Greys. Okay? Now, what's the role that they played? Well, with this going on, and in relation to the Anunnaki Syrians and the Satar queens, they operated as the SS Gestapo. In fact, they were allowed to walk freely among the population, and they were known as the stone builders at the time, henceforth stone-mason. All right? They are, in keeping with the idea of a corporeal body, they are the bean counters of the corporation. They are mathematical, calculating little bastards. Okay? Soulless to the core. All right? They have a very close relationship with reptilian blood, even though they were sent down to keep things in order and spy for the queens to keep these guys in line. Because they knew the feud here, was going to blow up sooner or later. They calculate in their mathematical and logical equations that they can run the whole corporate operation a hell of a lot better in this kingdom than these two imbeciles here fighting with each other. Okay? So they wait. He's thrown out. The slaves are reprogrammed to forget him. Okay? He's in charge by himself now. Okay? But there's an interesting thing that happened. Ea had a son, Marduk. Not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, okay? And it's in the name, Marduk. What is a duk? A Syrian dog of war. Mar, well, it's a reference to the god of war, okay? Marduk, all right, one of the Syrians. The Greys knew exactly how to manipulate the whole situation to their favor. They played both sides against the middle. They went to Marduk, knowing he was a dumbass, but also the son of Prince Ea. They went to him and said, you see what they did to your father? You want to get even? We'll help you. We'll back you in the next campaign for control. Marduk's like, yeah, because what were the Greys doing? They were banking on inflating his ego because he was too dumb to think any other way. So they blew up his ego and told him, you're the one who should be in charge, and we'll back you. Marduk leads the revolt against Enlil, throws out Enlil, now takes over middle management with the Anunnaki, at which point the Greys realize that with this imbecile at the head of the game, they can easily take over. So they follow through on their plot, go after Marduk, throw him out, throw the Anunnaki out, lock down the whole damn kingdom, and from that point on, they take over the entire operation. Now, of course, with all this going on, you have to ask yourself, what saved their asses from being eliminated by them, because this was a total violation of the treaties and relationships for producing a bottom line profit for the corporation. Well, the fact of the matter was, they were sent by the Sitar queens, and after they took over, they went to the queen and said, look, Anu's sons are a bunch of imbeciles ruining your bottom line. If we take over, we'll run everything on a dime, and you'll get your profit every time. So the Greys have been skating by on thin ice ever since then, with the promise that they'll keep the paycheck going to the queens to keep everybody happy. But of course, this created animosity with Anu, who was the favored one by the Sitars. As you can tell, the history of this solar system is like a soap opera on steroids, all right? So you've got that going, a total lockdown on the planet. The Greys take over. Well, something interesting happens here, okay? From the Greys, they decide, why knock a good thing? They decide to, based on the two-party system that already existed, they reinvent the two-party system. Only in their case, they call it, because of course now they are suddenly thrusted into the position of upper management. They wanted to recede into the background. They needed to reestablish a new two-party system to do all the work for them. So upper management, in this two-party system that's created by them, they invent the Raka pharaohs, okay, and the Raka shields, okay. And of course, as you already figured out, from Raka pharaoh comes the term Rockefeller. From Raka shields comes the term Rothschild, two-party system, okay. They invented that. Now, they were known as the Stone Masons, and since they were allowed to walk freely among the population like a Schutzstaffel, they became known as the Freemasons. Greys are the Freemasons, okay? This is why there's always this favoritism towards the pale-skinned abomination that does not belong to the family of man. Why? So they get this far here, okay? Knowing that, in comes the Ankhils and the Moorish legacy. The Ankhils, who had a relationship with Ea and Ninhursag, saw all this crap going down. And even though they did not have a direct relationship with what was going on, they couldn't exactly step in forcibly. That wasn't their way. They realized where the gene for passion went and where the royal blood went. Okay? They decided, let's do it that way. This serves as the beginning of the concept of guerrilla warfare, operating underground, all right? From the gene for passion, from the concept of the anointed ones, comes the Moorish legacy. That Moorish legacy is represented by the term Temple of Solomon. And it's in the name, just like the word Adam, Solomon. You break it down to 3 syllables, Sol, Oman. Sol is Latin for sun, Om, sound to light. So Om is frequency, and On is Sanskrit for sound to light. Basically, the name Solomon is a linguistic symbolism for awakening the beast. Okay? And of course, the Temple of Solomon is symbolically associated with gold, because gold is the perfect conductor of electricity, which brings us back to the concept of Frankenstein's monster being awakened. Okay? By using gold as a conduit, the beast is awakened. It's a symbolism. Some people argue, oh yes, the Temple of Solomon really exists. There really is the gold. Okay, whatever, but who cares? What are you going to do when you find it? They're going to put a gun to your head and pull the trigger anyway. So who cares if it really exists? What matters is towards this legacy, towards the family of man, it must be understood that the Temple of Solomon is a powerful symbolism for keeping the body healthy and pure. Okay? From what had happened here was that you've got the family of man now, inheriting the Moorish legacy, inheriting the legacy of the anointed ones, through the Temple of Solomon, using it as almost like a filter, a spiritual filter. The gene for passion filtered through the Temple of Solomon becomes what you guys know as the Passion of the Christ. Okay? Now, that term Christ, a bastardized term, spelt with CH, which is an Anglo-Saxon English spelling, totally wrong. The original proper spelling of it, it's not someone's last name. It's a title. It's a title for all major prophets. Every major prophet is called a Christ. It is spelled K-R-I-S-T, not C-H. K-R-I-S-T. Muhammad, the Christ. Buddha, the Christ. Isa, the one you call Jesus, the Christ. Okay? Noble Drew Ali, the Christ. Okay? Adam, the Christ. This is why you get the concept of the Christ energy coming through the bloodline of the prophets. It came from the gene for passion that was pumped into the anointed ones. Okay? Now, being that the Greys were not stupid. They knew what was still there. They knew they couldn't, even with the Arian technology, they couldn't fully erase that gene for passion. They couldn't get to the anointed ones. They were hiding out. And even with the Adapas, they had to constantly keep them brainwashed. And God forbid they should be taught by the Iesu to wake up and realize their true legacy as custodians of the earth. You don't want the slave population waking up to that. What had happened was that with the Moorish legacy coming out of Africa, Mother Africa, all right? That's an important term because later on it's slandered and erased by the Masonic agenda and therefore called the Dark Continent, all right? What had happened was that there was a certain segment of the population in northern Africa which started becoming very warlike, losing its way with Mother Nature, losing its connection and responsibility. Remember, custodians of the land, responsibility to Mother Earth. This particular population in northern Africa started acting very warlike, troublesome. They lost their way. They began to experiment on themselves, mutilate themselves, to the point where they bled all of the color right out of their skin. No more color. They became the pale skins, what you now know as Caucasian. They became so warlike and such a big problem that the rest of the Moorish people got together and was like, what the hell are we going to do with these guys? You know, they just won't stop. They're going to overtake everything and destroy us. So they decided to banish them. This is where you get the concept of being banished from the Garden of Eden. Okay? They decided to banish them, and by banishing them, they had to pick a spot to stick them. Well, there's only one continent on the planet that doesn't start with the letter A, and that's Europe. It's in the name, your rope. Rope, you hung yourself, okay? Europe is named after the African queen Europa. Europe was a dead wasteland, and it was used as a transcontinental prison to dump all the assholes who were causing the problem, namely the paleskins. So what happened was they cast it out of Africa because they couldn't stay there anymore anyway. They had burned all the color out of their skin, no more melanin. You can't sit in the sun anymore. I burn like a lobster when I go to the beach. So they had to get out of there anyway for health reasons. There were several reasons. One, they were no longer part of the family of men. Two, they were pale skinned. They couldn't stay in the sun anymore. Three, they were destroying the environment, polluting it, experimenting on themselves in abominable ways, producing these defective genetic offspring that you wouldn't even want to speak of. A good example would be the abominations you saw in Lord of the Rings trilogy, all those disgusting things that were created by Sauron, okay? They dragged them across the deserts of Arabia. This is where the bitterness begins. their pale skin being scorched by the desert, and dumped them in the cooler, less sun-like atmosphere of Europe, and leave them there. Perfect prison. Why? Because to the north you got snow, to the south you've got the mountain ranges, to the west you've got the Atlantic Ocean, and to the east, lo and behold, out of nowhere comes the Great Wall of China. You have to remember what comprised the Moorish legacy. It was known as the Amexem Empire. Now, the entire Amexem Empire went from Mongolia to South Africa, over to South America, and up through all of North America. They were known as the Asiatic nations, the Amexem Empire, the Moorish legacy. Okay, the family of man. And then you've got this orphan over here called Europe that nobody wanted. Okay? And of course, with the Great Wall of China, the academics tell you, oh, the wall was built to keep the barbaric hordes out, but no one ever bothers to ask who the hell the barbaric hordes were. The point is, it was built to keep them in, so they couldn't go anywhere. All right? And of course, in referencing the mountain ranges, there was one particular mountain range. You got the Sierra, the Nevada, the Caucasus. One particular mountain range called the Caucasus that a lot of them hung around. So this is how the term Caucasian becomes associated with the pale skin. It's not even a real term. Okay, it's like we're using the term Negro to describe black people. It just means black, and that's why it was picked. It has nothing to do with genealogy. Caucasian is also a dumbass term. So this is how those ridiculous things come about. But what had happened was that they were casted out. They were embarrassed. They realized, once they were dumped in Europe in this barren, dead wasteland that meant nothing to anyone in the family of man, they realized what they had done wrong. This is where you get the concept of like Adam and Eve feeling embarrassed and wanting to cover themselves, okay? Whereas before that they ran around naked. But they were so embarrassed about what had happened, they went into this massive psychological denial about the whole thing and started inventing all sorts of other bullshit mythology, monkeys coming down from the tree, even to the idea of being born of a she-wolf, okay? This is what they were grasping at straws because they couldn't admit that they had been banished from the family of man, lost the color from their skin, and were no longer part of that family anymore. And this is the great sin they committed against themselves. This is why they were banished. Well, the idea is, who created a rebellion within the family of, who created this rebellion in the Moorish legacy? Much the same way as the CIA does it to every country. These scumbags, in an effort to get even with the family of man, because the family of man had the gene for passion, the passion of the Christ, they started that insurgency in North Africa, okay? And this is how they began to experiment on themselves. Now, what were the Greys trying to do? Well, for one thing, they were trying to destroy this. They had a vendetta against that because they knew it came from the Anquils, which were associated with Ea and Ninhursag. On top of that, they were also looking for a good, obedient slave race, okay? And what better way to do that than to corner someone who's just been casted out and embarrassed for their own sin? So, the Greys, who themselves, of course, always favor the, yes? Oh, okay. We're going to have to stop, huh? Okay. Well, that's it. Yeah. Okay. The Greys go to the casted out paleskins and they say, do you want to get back on top of the food chain? You want to get even? Because, of course, they didn't learn their lesson, and the Greys knew that by approaching them early on, they would be able to capitalize on that feeling of vendetta and viciousness. So they say to them, we'll put you on the top of everything. If you obey us from this day forward, we will give you all the technology you need to go out there and do one thing for us. Colonize the living hell out of everyone and destroy the family of man. Destroy them, destroy them, destroy them. So from that day forward, those original European paleskins sold out the rest of the human race by agreeing to it, and by agreeing to it in feudal law, that means all of their paleskin descendants were now obedient to that system. And this is why, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Europe shows up on the scene as a world superpower, going out, destroying, colonizing, and massacring everyone in their path. Okay? doing it to Africa, doing it to the Middle East, doing it to the Western Hemisphere and the Americas. This was their agenda, their motive, their Masonic operation. They were known as the original Freemasons. By gaining the allegiance of the casted out paleskins, they then handed off that mantle to the paleskins. And this is how the extraterrestrial connection of Freemasonry becomes an earthbound Freemasonry. That's where Freemasonry came from, and it was created solely for the purpose of burying the Moorish legacy. This is why when you see this crap on the History Channel and all they talk about is these damn white scholars and academics. Oh, Freemasonry's gone. Yeah, well, if you're asking the enemy, of course they're going to say that, okay? Try asking a dark-skinned black Native American or a black African. See what kind of an answer you get from them, okay? But we're so busy labeling these people as with bows and arrows and spear chucking that, the so-called established community won't listen. But all the answers are there. You're just not asking the right people. You have to go to the other 70% that represents the majority of the population. So that's where it comes with that. So along the way, these prophets, there's no such thing as a pale-skinned prophet. Prophets are meant for those who are oppressed. 70% of the planet is oppressed by the other 30%. Pale-skinned prophet would be an abomination. Okay? There's no such thing as a pale-skinned prophet. The sad thing that black Masons will never be allowed to learn as lackeys for their white Mason counterparts is that they'll never be allowed to become 33rd degree Masons, because if they did, they'd be given a $10,000 pass by the Vatican to go to the House of Omar in Jerusalem and see the perfectly preserved body of Guru Master Prophet Isa, Jesus Christ, and what they would see is a black man. So there's no such thing as a pale-skinned prophet. This, of course, also helps us disseminate truth from fiction in terms of apparitions and visions and crap like that. If you're looking at, some extraterrestrial, paranormal, or supernatural apparition, and you think you've seen the Virgin Mary or Jesus Christ or Joseph, the first question out of your mouth is, were they white or black? If they were white, they saw something else. They didn't see that. Okay? So any of this crap you hear about, the Virgin Mother coming in, she's described in this, white porcelain, pure Caucasian skin. No. Okay? There was something there, but it wasn't that. If you read the book Heavenly Lights, The Apparitions of Fatima and the UFO Phenomena, you'll see how all those so-called religious things, which were skewed towards white Christianity, belong to the realm of alien contact, definitively and scientifically. Okay? But I'll leave it there. I wish I could do more.
See, we're just going to do a little collection here. You can keep up until we finish the collection.
All right, I'm going to keep up because it's doing something. All right?
We'll pass around a little something, and put whatever you can. We want to give him a little transportation stuff. Okay? And then he'll stop.
Okay.
But he can continue now through the basket thing.
If you guys want to ask questions, go ahead. Yes.
Your description of the ascension of Europe and what their mission was, or is.
Yeah.
And if you look at the mission, a lot of people have been hurt, a lot of people have been programmed, people of dark view, things like that. There's been a lot of messing, a lot of blood commingling,
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
And there really is nobody that's truly pure from what I see. And maybe there is, but I don't think it is. Could you repeat what you answered?
Well, he hasn't gotten to a question yet. So. All right. He's talking about the mixes of the races, mixed marriages, stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. So my question is, are all Europeans summarily condemned? Are all non-Europeans, whatever that is, do they have a leg up? Is there redemption? That's my question.
Yeah, the thing is this. This is a decree that comes down from the galactic community. If you want to be part of the galactic community, you're going to have to get rid of the pale skin. And the way you get rid of that is start blackening yourself up a little bit, okay? Since the 1970s, interracial marriages have risen from 2% to 7% just here in America. That's a lot, okay? When you consider there's like about 300 million of us in here, including illegal aliens, 7% of 300 million is a lot and a great improvement. And it's got to go more so in that direction. That's why when I hear these people in the metaphysical and paranormal communities, oh, alien contact's going to happen in the year 2008. Excuse me, I'm still pale. It's not happening, okay? The thing is, the benevolent factions, the pale skin is an abomination to Mother Earth, an abomination to the family of man. It wasn't supposed to exist. It's an insult to the benevolent factions to even waste their time contacting a population that engages in tribal warfare because of that 30% abomination that controls the natural 70% that's supposed to inherit the land. So this is the thing that's going on. There. No, what I'm saying is that all the pale skins have to be absorbed back into the family of man. All right? This pale skin has to go. Now that may take, another 100 years, another 500 years. So don't hear me this crap about alien contact being around the corner when this pale skin still exists. And if those SOBs do show up on our doorstep, it'll be a wolf in sheep's clothes, and you should run for the hills because they're coming a little too early, which means they have other intentions. All right? Yes? Oh. The body has to have a soul. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's another interesting thing. The gene. Symbolically, the gene for passion is the soul. I think, therefore I am. That is the soul. Without that gene for passion, you are nothing. You are an empty, hollow husk obeying commands. This is this process is it's a learning process called the process of reincarnation, and this is what. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you.
It's a little expensive. Okay. So
Okay.
Just a little something.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's give him a clap, please.
Beautiful. Okay. We're gonna have to get him again. Maybe have a bigger crowd.
I'll come
Part
back
2
again,
and part
guys.
3,
Yeah.
He does all those kinds of things.
I'll definitely come back again. All right. Oh, does anybody have the other photo album? Oh, okay, she's got that. Okay. $12, yeah.
And is this what you're just talking about?
There's a lot of stuff that's in here that's written in, and it's written in poetic format, symbolism in the poetry. Because I felt that, in a lot of ways, that was the only way to get it into a book like this. There is another book I want to write that gets into this in a more expansive way, a literal way.
What you gonna call it? You haven't made up your mind.
I haven't made up my mind yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have to pay you for these?
No, those are free.
Okay.
I'm the DC. Keep that.
Oh,
I'm
thank
the
you.
reason you're here. I'm
Oh.
not interested in nobody else but listening to you.
Thank you very much.
When I contact you, I'll have some specific questions.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. It's great to meet you.
One last question.
Yes.
What is the benefit of prayer and meditation to what we are right now?
The whole, yes.
We would like to buy your book.
Oh, okay. I'll give you 3 ones back. The whole, some people call it prayer. I call it, it's more sensible to say meditation. You can call it whatever you want. And the reason for it is to cleanse your mind, because in order to cleanse the Temple of Solomon, you have to first start with the mind. And the reason you start with the mind is because they use psychological warfare against the human race.
So what do you want to access? When you meditate, you want to access something. What do you want to access? Something that's already in you? Or
Well, you would, what I feel you do is you end up accessing something you could call your higher self, which basically connects you to the other lifetimes that you lived, and you can learn lessons from that and open up like a whole living library within yourself. Learn what happened with the past, and then also see what's going to happen with the future, because the past and the future move in cycles. To know the past, you can easily predict the future.
above all of that, what's in charge? I mean, where do all these guys? You started over here.
Yeah. At this point in time, the system is still a two-party system. It was.
Yeah, but what's controlling that? I mean, it just didn't come from nowhere.
Ultimately, what I go back to is the Satar Queens, the Arians.
Well, who's above them?
That, I wouldn't be able to tell you if there's something above that. I haven't learned it yet. You might have to ask somebody else, okay? But I would definitely try to take this and merge it with what Bob Urey was talking about upstairs when he was writing those names on the board, okay, the different levels. I would think these are the pale-skinned whites, okay? So they're called Aryans, but he also called them Kordax or Kori. I forget the name he used. You can ask him again. That term he used would be right here.
Can we study ancient Egypt and pull something from that?
Yes, because the part I didn't get to was that the original religion of the planet for the Moorish legacy and the lamp of illumination, the anointed ones, the line of the prophets, it's called Kemet, and that is the original name of Egypt, Al-Kemet. Right. The capital of Egypt is Al-Qahira, known also as Cairo, and Al-Qahira or Cairo translates into the word Mars. Right. Henceforth, Sidonia Codex I mentioned earlier, the Martian geoglyphs, the Mesoamerican geoglyphs.
Hebrew language. And the Hebrews. That's all from Kemet also, the Hebrews?
It would all go back to that. You got to take into consideration black Jews, known as Levites. They were the ones specifically in charge of handling the Golden Ark. Nobody else can touch it. To this day, it exists, and anyone else who tries to examine it or touch it, especially a pale-skinned scientist, will be vaporized because they don't know how to handle it the right way. Only these black Levites, black Jews, referred to in slang, are the only ones who have been trained since the beginning of all this to handle that technological device the right way without destroying themselves.
And they still exist today.
It still exists to this day. It is, in association with that, it was one of the biggest motivations for getting into and invading Baghdad, getting to the Baghdad Museum, which is a profound museum worldwide because they have these ancient alien artifacts which are seen as religious symbols but are actually technological devices. I don't think they work anymore, but it's like looking at giant capacitors and diodes, which was also the case of why the Ark is characterized as being laced with gold. Gold, as I said, is a perfect electrical conductor. The Ark is a technological capacitor, diode, transistor, whatever. Right. Okay?
You ever heard of Fred Bell?
Who?
Fred Bell.
Fred Bell.
Doesn't ring a bell like that.
No. No, I haven't. What's your name, by the way?
Noah.
Noah? Oh,
right.
Nice to meet you.
I get your cards. You have an email address?
Yes, I do. I also use the take the card that's in front of the postcards there as the UFO teacher at AOL.com. That email address. Use that one. All right.
And I'll send you a copy of the other.
Okay.
Can I get your autograph?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah,
you the one?
And I'd like to
okay.
purchase it and get your
Okay.
Will this book touch on the concepts and the different things?
Yes, but in a symbolic way. That's why I said I want to do a second book that gets into it literally. Okay? Your name?
It's for Ryan.
Okay.
Ryan bought it.
Ryan? Ryan. R-Y-A?
No.
How you spell?
R-O-N.
R-O-N. Okay, Ron.
You know, I was thinking back in Europe during the time of feudal kingdoms and all of that, the Moors were also had shields and different things showing that they were in rulership in the feudal kingdom. Was that a part of the civilizing?
Thank you.
Was that a part? What you're saying of the civilizing process, the mating with Moorish, like in Scotland and Britain, they had, they showed that there was a Moorish legacy, the shields. What do you call it?
I think a lot of that comes directly from the legacy of the Sasquatch or those kind of anointed ones, because every culture has one. This is where the Scots got the idea of fighting from the hills and using guerrilla weapon. What the Scots learned is also what was taught to the Native Americans, who then passed it on to George Washington to win against the British.
Okay.
Yeah.
My simplified question was all this commingling, was that meant to be part of a civilizing process?
Yes.
Humanizing?
Yes. It was meant to create a gateway or a doorway for the pale skin to come back home, come back to the family of men. So that you wouldn't, because ultimately, if people of color of hue want to inherit the legacy of custodianship in this kingdom, they must rescue the pale-skinned brother and sister from annihilation, because being that they're the ones in power, if they are allowed to destroy themselves in an act of genocide, they're also going to wipe out everybody else, black, white, or otherwise. So that's why the mandate comes down from the galactic community: get the damn